Hi, this is Paul Hefty doing Positive Discipline Managing Behavior lecture for the 493 course. A couple things we'll cover is managing that behavior, preventive discipline, and then looking at some successful strategies to deal with that behavior. So first off, what is positive discipline? It's an approach where it helps develop self-control for your athletes, and it begins with instruction or teaching versus doing discipline in the situations, hopefully developing some lifelong skills. Rita Person was a woman that taught from the Chicago public school system, had some great examples that we used in the last lecture. Hopefully this will be an some instruction where you can use it for strategies and ways to correct their mistakes, but most importantly, you're teaching some behaviors as well as correcting those behaviors. So first off, there's two types of mistakes or misbehaviors there are. The first one is people just haven't mastered the skill yet. So in sport, that would be obviously a technique or a skill. The second type, though, is where the individual just decides to misbehave. They choose to do too. So you need to then take some prompt action to correct that type of behavior. So key number one is to know when your players or your students need instruction or correction, and then you can use this preventative discipline, which we'll go into here. So a couple steps here. First, you want to create the right team culture. Why is that important? We've talked about that a ton, is if you better understand what the culture is in your team and then create one that is a positive environment, then obviously you're going to have a more receptive group in dealing with those situations. It also helps as a guide, and it's a way to use situational leadership we've talked about. Step two is to hold meetings, and the reason for holding those meetings is just create consistent communication. More importantly, it gives you hopefully a way to listen and learn yourself, and then you need to make sure you find ways to teach using the methods that people best learn or receive that information. So hopefully doing some real problem solving creates some input, and then there's an investment in creating a real positive culture. Step three then is developing those team rules or expectations. And again, this is just so that people know what is acceptable, what isn't, what the consequences are, and so you're being consistent and fair there also. Step four, create those team routines. Again, that helps people know what and how to do things, and it actually sets up people for success. Step five, conduct active and fun, exciting practices. And that's really simple, is we've all had those experiences where practice itself isn't enjoyable and it's a chore. That obviously doesn't create a positive environment, where if you're doing this, the routine of fun or constant activity creates an open for positivity. Number six is catch them doing good. This is real simple. Positive reinforcement is so much more powerful than negative reinforcement. So again, try to reward effort, not so much the outcome, focusing on the process versus the product. Corrective discipline, step one then, is we need to just simply try to minimize the negatives of punishment and motivate the athletes through better performance, but obviously giving them positive ways to improve. So the motivation needs to be ways to find people improve, and then your goal is to help them develop this self-discipline and then eventually create self-improvement. Step two is it involves instruction and training. So we've talked about this from the Rita Pearson. You are, as a coach, you are a teacher, and that's probably one of the most important things you do. So creating positive instruction versus negative discipline. Again, that's a short-term solution, and it really doesn't help you in the long term. The question is, though, when is negative punishment necessary? And obviously when there's an unsafe environment, and then we'll talk about this later, you have a legal duty to intervene in that situation. So basically stopping the activity that's disruptive or destructive, and then hopefully keeping things safe and meeting your legal duty. Some strategies for doing that. I'd like you to work on this clinic here a little bit on your own, where you use the positive discipline approach versus negative. Step one, just list different things or ways athletes misbehave. Think from your past experiences. If you were like me, I was a kid that was always trying to do those troublesome things, so I have a good list just thinking about myself. Then, secondly, list strategies to correct the behavior. Come up with some new ideas instead of just using things that your coaches or teachers or your parents use. Remember that people get discouraged or get into negative ways. Find out why. It could be as simple as things going on at home, school, problems with friends, family, just overall treatment, or maybe the way you are. Secondly, again, it's real important people feel like they belong to that organization and team, or it's just have a significance, meaning a self-worth. So find out if they are insecure, why, and why they feel unimportant with your team. So go ahead and do the clinic there, pause it at this point, and then come on back. Some different strategies for correcting the behavior then is first determine if the violation is of a law or team rules that's violating that itself. Remember, we have a legal duty in certain situations, and there are policies and rules in your organization. You need to make sure you check those first. Second, be respectful, but you need to be firm. So a real simple rule of thumb is this is acceptable or this isn't acceptable, and not a big lecture into it. You need to address the behavior quickly and be consistent with that. That helps you be highly predictable when you're dealing with all sorts of different people in these situations, your players in particular, or even your coaches, parents, anyone involved. And again, provide an opportunity for each individual to improve. That's the focus. That's a simple way to keep things in a positive light. Be specific about what you want them to stop doing, and then but more importantly, you have to give them very specific instruction of how to do it correctly. Don't assume they know. And then again, as I said, avoid lecturing. Also, be confident in what you're doing. I always call this let the dirt settle. So sometimes, so that your emotions don't get in the way, is to pause and let the dirt settle a little bit, let the emotion leave the room, and then we can have a logical conversation. Try to stay calm and in control, again, so you're not reacting to things. Number 3, make sure you can forgive and move forward. So after the discipline has been served, we need to go ahead and give that person an opportunity to get in a positive light. I always love this saying, nothing means something. So if you don't say something, the people will fill in the blanks for you. So you have to take a position as a leader. Remind your players that there is a right and a wrong, and again, giving them clear definitions. Address in private attention seekers. You're going to have those individuals that are misbehaving just to get attention. I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they did that this morning at drop-off. Address that by, again, putting the person in an individual situation instead of the group. When it does happen, make sure you're addressing the behavior and not the individual's character. You don't want to embarrass or humiliate them. And then last, consequences should never be harmful, both physically or psychologically. And then if we think of our 3 developmental areas, that's why you want to do this on an individual basis, so there isn't a social harm also being done. Some tips. Again, you have the power to choose right or wrong is a great saying to tell these individuals. That's the self-discipline that you want to create. Avoid those public confrontations. Talk to them like a human being. I know I've been in situations when I was an athlete where yelling and screamed at is not really a great receptive atmosphere. If you do have sometimes where you do raise your voice to get the attention of individuals, make sure that when that tension is created, you find a way to crush that negative environment and get back to a positive. And it's as simple as a joke, something light. Usually making fun of yourself kind of gives that atmosphere back to a positive environment. Effective consequences are just losing privileges. A good example I've always used with camps is, instead of disciplining and making them running or something like that, is hopefully the activity, the games and what you're doing is fun, so you actually, like a timeout, have them sit out of the activity just for a short period of time, and then give them a chance to come back and improve and change that behavior. And then lastly, rewarding or giving an opportunity for rewards is a great way to demonstrate what's correct, what isn't, and reinforce those positive behaviors. So the last thing to do is then, which you'll need to do for the portfolio, is take this information and you need to design a rewards discipline type system. Think about how you would provide specific team policies for the rewards, specific team policies for the discipline, and then kind of reflect back onto your own individual style and help develop a system. If you see here, these are the templates that I've talked about. It's a grid. You simply click on the Word doc there and you can go in and make adjustments and fill in the blanks to answer those questions, and it starts to develop your system, which you'll use on your portfolio. That's really it. Make sure this is posted, the PowerPoint, to go back and take notes. I know I went quick, but again, the goal is to look at positive ways to correct behavior and manage your athletes. And with the portfolio is for you to come up with this very concrete rewards discipline system using the template here at the end. Thanks.